I also want to thank you for mentioning the work of the Department of Justice with respect to the Colonial Pipeline in your opening remarks. And I want to begin with a few questions about cybersecurity. As you know, ransomware attacks are a significant concern throughout the country, but particularly in my district in North Carolina. In May, the Colonial Pipeline attack left nearly 3/4 of Raleigh, North Carolina gas stations simply without fuel. And as you also know, the Colonial Pipeline paid a ransom demanded by the hackers in order to unlock their systems and resume operations. While the DOJ's recently launched Ransomware and Digital Extortion Task Force was eventually able to recoup some of the money paid by Colonial Pipeline, victims are often left to negotiate with attackers to recover the systems without any federal help. And so I'd like for you to share why DOJ chose to be more aggressive in the Colonial Pipeline situation, and what are the factors that would lead DOJ to get involved directly in a ransomware case?
Well, I don't want to go too far out on a limb on this, but I think DOJ would like to be involved in every ransomware case if we have the resources. The problem is generally not all victims of ransomware tell us. Not all victims tell us before they make ransom payments. If victims would tell us before, we would have a good opportunity possibly to be able to recover. We would have some opportunity to be able to help between the FBI and the computer section of the Justice Department and the computer section at Department of Homeland Security. We are willing and able to deal with victims of ransomware, including doing negotiations if necessary. So I think this is really more of a question of getting cooperation from the victims who, and I mean no disrespect to the victims, but they're not always willing to tell us in advance. And I think it would be very helpful if we were told in advance.
And would it also be helpful if you had reporting on what victims had paid in ransomware in a larger registry? I've introduced legislation. There's companion Senate legislation on this.
Like the more information we can find out about who's demanding the ransoms, what victims are paying, how they're paying, what kind of wallets they're paying them into, what kind of cyber or crypto wallets they're being asked to pay them into. All of those things help us understand the ecosystem. So the more information we have, the better.
Thank you for those responses. I'm going to switch to the ERA and women's rights. And today marks the 50th anniversary of the Equal Rights Amendment and its passage in the House of Representatives. Since the bill passed the House in 1971, 38 states have ratified the ERA, meeting the constitutional requirement necessary to certify and publish the ERA as the 28th Amendment to the Constitution. But under the Trump administration, the DOJ's Office of Legal Counsel issued an opinion blocking the Archivists of the United States from certifying the amendment, even if Congress extends the deadline. As you know, women continue to face obstacles to their equality in pay, in child care, in the criminal justice system. And scholars at the ERA project at Columbia Law School have released a new analysis arguing that the memo should be withdrawn because it rests on erroneous interpretations of legal precedent and directly contradicts previous IOLC opinions. Attorney General Garland, it's common practice for the DOJ to review prior legal opinions and withdraw those that are not legally sound. Will you commit today to closely examine the OLC memo, and if you agree with these legal scholars that it is flawed, rescind this memo so that gender equality can be enshrined in the Constitution?
Well, I will certainly, I think the first step is to find out what OLC is doing in this respect. Sometimes they review previous opinions, and often they do not, out of respect for their own precedents. I don't know what the status is with respect to this one. I certainly understand the argument, and I'll see if I can find out what OLC is doing in this respect.
Thank you very much, and I yield back.
The gentlelady yields back. Ms. Bush.
St. Louis, and I thank